Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, and I'm a big fan of romance movies, but more specifically, very good romance movies. Rom-coms, I don't mind. A lot of them, there are great ones, but this is my top 10 favorite romances. There might be a couple of rom-coms in there. Let's go. At number 10 is a rom-com. We have Palm Springs. This is a big surprise, I know, for a lot of people. And this film really surprised me personally. It was really, really funny, very witty, but also there was a great core romance in the story. It's basically about two people live the same day over and over again. They're not particularly close or anything like that, but they start to bond over the shared experience. And it does get quite philosophical in a way, and very heartwarming and sad, but again, consistently very, very funny. It stars Andy Samberg and Christian Milotti, and they've just got incredible chemistry together. I could watch this film on repeat, as if I'm watching it on loop every day because of the concept of the film. And if you haven't seen this film, I'm going to do something for every single one on this list, as I'm just going to play a very quick little clip to convince you to watch the film. Yeah. At number 9, we have Cha Cha Real Smooth. I actually reacted to this film on the channel. This is directed by Cooper Raiff, who's personally one of my favorite directors, despite only making 2 films. He really took me by surprise. I absolutely loved his film It House, his very first directorial debut, which is also a romance and was a contender to be on this list. But instead, I went for Cha Cha Real Smooth. Bit of an unconventional romance, I will say. I'm not going to spoil why, but it is a romance nonetheless. Impeccably written, acted, shot really nicely too, and just a really sweet story in the middle of it. Yeah, I love this one.
Want a night out, or like want some help?
Okay.
At number 8, we have Carol. This stars Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, and I mean, if you haven't seen the film, I don't really know how to describe this film. It's gorgeously shot. It's so beautiful. The chemistry between the two are wonderful. Some of the best that you'll see out there in a romance film. It's directed by Todd Haynes, who did May December. I mean, when I show you the clip, I think that might be enough to convince you. It's a romance between 2 women in about, I don't know, I think the 50s or something, 60s possibly. I watched it a few months ago, but it's so beautiful, and I would really recommend this one. And number 7 is maybe a stereotypical one, but La La Land. This is where we're starting to get into the 5 out of 5 territory for me. These are like true masterpieces of the romance genre and film genre. Again, I feel like there's nothing to say about La La Land that hasn't been said a million times before. It's of course, it was a big Oscar contender at the time, and since then it's beloved by many people and still talked about to this day. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone have impeccable chemistry. Yeah, if you want to know so much about this film, go watch the thousands and thousands of videos that have been made on La La Land. It's good. At number 6, we have, this is actually the 3rd film in a trilogy, Before Midnight. I can't really talk too much about Before Midnight if you haven't seen the previous 2, so of course no spoilers. I will play a little clip, as usual, but I mean, I can't really, when I talk about the first film in the trilogy, that should be enough to convince you to watch the 2nd and then the 3rd, and I'm sure when you check out the first film, you'll be like, oh, I need to complete this trilogy. So yeah, Before Midnight at number 6.
Most women who achieve anything in life, the first time you hear about them, they're in their 50s because it was so hard for them to get any recognitions before then.
At number 5, this is a film I saw many years ago but has still stuck with me ever since. I've got it on Blu-ray. Is Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Rooney Mara is in it as well, and Amy Adams. Chris Pratt also shows up, which definitely took me by surprise when I first watched it. But I've not watched this in maybe, I don't know, 4 years. This is about a man who is very lonely after a divorce and starts to get feelings for his AI program. very romantic. Now, trust me, this is a beautiful, beautiful film. Personally, I think it's one of the best films of all time. Then again, the next, 4 films are also, to me, one of the best films of all time. But her, again, I've not seen it in 4 years, but it is stuck with me ever since. I do plan on rewatching. However, it is that heart-wrenching, and just, there's films out there that are so beautiful that you just don't want to watch for a while, because it's like, I don't want to be dead inside all over again. So that's her. Beautiful film.
How can I help?
You already have. You helped me discover my ability to want.
At number 4 we have, and this is another very popular one, Call Me By Your Name. I am a straight man, but this film back in high school, I think, is when back in, I want to say year 10, which would have been about 14, 15 years old is when I first watched this film, which was around about when it came out. I feel like this really helped me at the time, because I feel like I was in a school of a lot of homophobic people. But watching this film just, again, I suppose reassured my own views that it was completely okay. It's, in British high school, this is not something that is really talked about. Love between men, that's not really talked about. It might be now, it's been years since I've been to high school. But this is a beautiful, beautiful film. It has some of my favourite scenes of all time, or it has one scene that is one of my favourites of all time. Again, I will show this clip. This is nothing to do with romance. This clip I will show, but I think it's one of the best scenes ever written. It is adapted from a book, but in terms of its performance as well and how it's shot, it's so beautiful. It's a phenomenal film that I had the privilege of seeing in cinemas as well. This film has also been talked about a million times. Quite controversial to a lot of people, but for me, no, it's 10 out of 10.
We rip out so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster that we go bankrupt by the age of 30.
At number 3, we have Before Sunset, which is the second film in the trilogy. Yeah, it's not, I suppose it's not really a great selling point to say that the films get worse as they go along, but they don't really get worse. They are all consistently masterful. It's just you kind of prefer the first over the second, or maybe the second over the third, but for a lot of people, each people's favourite in the trilogy is kind of different. Each films are quite, the first and second film are more similar than to the third one, but again, this is so beautiful. The script, I can never get over the script. Richard Linklater is a genius filmmaker and writer, and as performers, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are... there was an interview I think I read little bits of not too long ago, and I think Julie said about a scene, it's actually in the first one, where she thought she was actually falling in love with the scene. She was in a scene with Ethan and she felt like she was actually falling in love. If that doesn't convince you to watch this trilogy, I don't know what does. What will, sorry.
And how the sun was making it glow that morning right before you left. I remembered that.
At number 2, now people didn't expect this. I know a lot of people didn't expect this. This is the second Luca Guadagnino film in this list. That is Bones and All. I saw this twice in cinemas. I've seen it for a third time since at home. I don't know how to describe this film and my personal attachment to it. Don't get me wrong, it is unbelievably well shot and acted. I do think it was snubbed in many categories. I will say this film is not for everyone. It is violent. It's if you haven't heard of the film, it's about 2 cannibals who meet each other on the road, and well, they start to connect with one another. They're 2 people who don't want to be cannibals. This is something that they are just born with, that they need to eat to survive. They're not bad people. I'm not here to defend these 2 people. It's hard to describe the romance between these 2 people, but it's so complex, so beautiful. I could watch it tomorrow. I could watch it next week. I could watch it anytime. Very beautiful, very sad. Big recommendation for me. It's about 2 hours 10, which isn't too bad, but obviously a lot of romances are kind of under the 2 hours, but trust me, every second of this is worth it. And when you watch it, you will come back to me and you'll say, how did that not get nominated?
For what?
Don't scream.
I thought I was the only one.
And at the number one spot, if you couldn't guess, obviously from the way I talked about this trilogy, it's Before Sunrise. Now I can kind of talk about this film a little bit more. I watched this maybe 3-4 years ago, and, you know, I didn't study film at that point. It's quite an artsy film in the sense that it's all dialogue. There's not a plot at all. This trilogy doesn't really have a plot. It's just about two people talking and discovering, you know, love, but also raising questions about the world and the world around them and how it's changing and shifting, and they both have really interesting perspectives on the world and people, and it's very beautiful, and it takes place in Italy, if I remember correctly, and they're simply just walking around Italy and taking everything in, and I mean, it's shot on film, if that's a selling point for people. I mean, most of these films are actually shot on film, which I suppose is probably a trend with great romances being shot on film. Cha Cha Real Smooth isn't, Palm Springs isn't, as for the rest, I'm pretty sure they are. Before Sunrise, I've recommended to every single person I've ever met. Well, not really, but I wish if all the people in my life loved romances, I would recommend this film to every single one of them. I intend to revisit this film a million times in the future. I've got the first two films on DVD. I intend to get it on Criterion Blu-ray because, I mean, come on, I need to see that in crisp, clear quality. This is another film that I've not seen in years, just because part of me can't stomach it. I did actually show, I mean, it's not even a sad film, it's just, I'm so attached to the characters that I don't want to go back. I did show this film to my film class during a lesson. I think we watched like the first 40-50 minutes. Yeah, it's so good. If you're not a fan of like heavy dialogue films, trust me, you will be a fan of this. Yeah, it's that good. And those are my top 10 favorite romances of all time. Of course, we had 1, 2.5 rom-coms. I'm counting La La Land as a half because it's very funny. Palm Springs, of course, a rom-com, and Cha Cha Real Smooth is a bit of a rom-com as well. I mean, it's Cooper Raiff, he's a very funny guy, so you kind of get that. Yeah, I love romances, but there's so many bad ones out there that, you know, I feel like I should shed light on these phenomenal romances. Number 9 and number 8 to number 10 were quite difficult for me to pick. It was between those and like 10 Things I Hate About You, which I was gonna put in, I would go in, but I didn't really see it as too much of a romance, but more of just a coming of age film of the time. As well as About Time is another brilliant romance, but again, part of me is like, yeah, there is romance, but it's also ultimately love between father and son, not in that way. So yeah, very difficult. I was also considering putting Little Women in here, but again, there's more of a story of family and being a woman. I feel like more than a romance between two people. But yeah, those are my top 10. Let me know in the comments below what are your top 10 favorite films, and have you seen these romance films? And yeah, my Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd down below if you'd like to draw for them. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.